Welcome to the fourth video in ChildTrend's six-part series on building evidence for effective programs. In this video, we'll introduce you to the fourth step of a five-step, data-driven process to support the delivery of effective programs. Then we'll meet Maya, the director of an academic tutoring program at a youth-serving nonprofit organization. We'll check in with her to see how she and her team implemented Step 4. Before we learn about Step 4, let's review the overall process. The basic idea is that you'll want to assess the needs and resources in your community, identify the need to be targeted, create a plan, and then implement your plan to deliver your program and monitor its quality. Once your program is running smoothly, you might want to take that final step of conducting an evaluation. Keep in mind that while we present the steps as a linear process, it may not work that way for you. Because this is a journey of learning about your program, it's normal to revisit an earlier step from time to time to apply something you've learned in a later step. For a more detailed introduction to the full process, check out the first video in this series. Now, let's talk about Step 4. In this step, it's time to put the theory of change and logic model you developed in Step 3 into action. That means delivering your program and monitoring its quality. If you haven't developed a theory of change and logic model, or if you have one but haven't revised it recently, you may want to take a moment to review the video on Step 3 before you continue with this video. Let's take a closer look at what it means to deliver and monitor the quality of your program. In addition to delivering your program as described in your logic model, you'll want to develop a system for collecting and reviewing program data on a regular basis so that you can use that data to make improvements to your program. You might have heard these systems referred to as continuous quality improvement or performance management. This is different than a program evaluation, which generally only happens once or once in a great while. The outputs and outcomes sections of your logic model should be your guide as you think about what data to collect to monitor the quality of your program. We'll review a few of the things that you might want to measure when monitoring your program quality. Make sure to check out the resource links on the webpage for more guidance on what to measure. One output to keep in mind is staff skills. Paying attention to your staff is critical since they are generally the ones who are delivering the program. In many cases, they are also the ones who spend the most time with program participants. You'll want to figure out what skills and knowledge your staff need to do a good job of delivering your program and then provide them with training to ensure they actually have the right knowledge and skills. For example, you might have a written pre- and post-training assessment to see if staff have more knowledge or feel better equipped to implement what they learned. You could also observe them practicing the skills they were expected to learn to determine if they seem to have gotten it. The next step is to review the data you collect so that you can decide whether the training seemed effective. If a few staff didn't improve, you might follow up with them to provide extra support. If most staff didn't improve, you may need a different training strategy. Another output to measure is program fidelity, which is basically ensuring that your program is being delivered as intended. For example, are staff delivering all of the content in each lesson, or are some staff skipping activities such as the role plays? Some programs ask staff to complete a checklist after each session to ensure they actually did everything they were supposed to. Other programs video record sessions or have someone observe a few program sessions in person to determine whether all components of the program were delivered as expected. The decision about how to assess fidelity will depend on things like your resources and the nature of your program. The main thing is that you want to know if there are issues with the way your program is being delivered that need to be addressed. You'll also want to monitor how program participants are engaging with your program. One way to do that is to monitor attendance. For example, knowing that program attendance drops off drastically after Session 3 could lead you to explore whether there's something about Session 3 that needs changing. Similarly, if you start off with equal numbers of boys and girls but end up with mostly girls, you need to figure out why the boys are dropping out. Another strategy is to get participant feedback. You might implement some informal strategy after each session, like having participants vote by placing a red or green marble in a jar at the end of a session to indicate whether they like the session or not. Another option is to administer a short survey with a handful of questions about their experience. It's preferable not to wait until the very end of the program, at which point there is nothing you can do to improve the program for those participants, but the frequency will depend on your resources and the nature of the program. You'll also want to monitor changes in participant outcomes. The way you do this will depend on the outcomes in your logic model and your resources. For example, if improved grades or standardized test scores are your outcome of interest, you might make an agreement with the school to obtain participants' grades to monitor changes over time. If you aren't able to get access to student records, you might consider other academic outcomes such as academic motivation or self-reported grades. For things like conflict resolution or leadership skills, you might collect some combination of data from program staff, youth, and parents through a pre- and post-survey depending on the age of the youth. The important thing is that you collect data often enough so that you can use it to make course corrections before you get to the end of the program when there is not much you can do about it. No matter what data you decide to collect, you should make sure that you'll be able to examine your data for different groups of youth such as race, ethnicity, and gender. You might also want to be able to examine it by school or program site. Examining your data for different groups can help you learn whether you have engaged certain groups of youth more than others. Also, when you learn things from your data that prompt you to change your program in some way, it can be helpful to talk with participants or other community members to see what they think. They may be able to help identify and troubleshoot potential challenges. Now, let's check in on Maya.
My name is Maya, and I'm the director of a program that prepares middle school students for success in high school by providing them with the same academic tutor for 2 years. We've been running the program for 7 years now, serving about 100 youth each year across 2 schools. It's a great program, and I'm always so inspired by our students and tutors. Last year, after I attended a workshop on program evaluation, we began a journey to improve our program. We started by engaging community members to reassess the needs and resources in our community. We learned that while test scores had improved at the schools we were working with, those schools had not been as successful at helping African American and Hispanic students to achieve. By talking with parents and students, we discovered that our program was not doing enough to meet the needs of our African American and Hispanic students either. Then we worked with our staff and our board of directors to make some revisions to our theory of change and logic model. While we kept the same program outcomes, we added some additional activities and outputs related to training our tutors in how to build supportive relationships with students. Our team felt pretty good about our revised logic model, but we also knew that it would take work to make sure the changes we were making were effective. We formed a performance management team to think through the data we would need to collect to monitor the quality of our program and track outcomes. The only data we collected before were test scores and program attendance. Program attendance was fairly simple to collect, although sometimes we missed students who came late. On the other hand, it had been quite a process to get the school district to provide us with individual scores. The first thing our team did was to make sure to collect information about race, ethnicity, and gender on our intake forms. We also developed a brief survey for tutors to complete at the end of each semester to learn about their experiences, including how they felt about the new trainings. We developed a similar survey for students to complete at the end of each semester about their experiences. My team and I then went over the student survey results with each tutor at the end of each semester. We also reviewed their students' program attendance and grades to help the tutors identify areas of strength and to set goals for the next semester. This new system required quite a bit of work to begin with. I needed some training in using spreadsheets to do basic data analysis. My team and I also had to find time to meet with tutors each semester to review the data on the youth they worked with. All in all, it took us about a year to get a good system in place. But our hard work really paid off. The best part is that the data are helping us to do our jobs better. Tutors are telling us they feel more effective, and program attendance is up. We've also heard from several parents that they are happier with their program too. In fact, we were asked by another school if we could work with their students next year.
Let's look back at what Maya has accomplished so far on her journey. In steps 1 and 2, working with the community, Maya and her team learned that they needed to work on better meeting the needs of their students, especially African American and Latino students who gained less from the program than their white peers. In step 3, they made changes to their theory of change and logic model to focus on reducing the gap for African American and Latino students. Throughout the process, Maya and her team continued to engage community members to get insights about how to make the programming better. In step 4, Maya and her team decided what data they would collect to monitor the delivery of their program and track outcomes. They made sure to review the data on a regular basis to make ongoing program improvements. Check out the resources links on the webpage for more about monitoring program quality. To see what Maya and her team did next, check out video 5.